You're listening to New England Real Estate Journal Radio with Rick Kaplan, New England's source for commercial real estate news. This is New England Real Estate Journal Radio on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
Welcome to the New England Real Estate Journal Radio Show. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson. He hates when I call him my co-host, so we'll call him Eric Wilson from now on. Today's show is brought to you by the New England Real Estate Journal, bringing together the commercial real estate industry for over 50 years. Find us at nerej.com. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor for the show, call 800-654-4993 or email us at radio@nerej.com. Again, that's 800-654-4993 or email radio@nerej.com. So, good morning, Eric.
Good morning,
good
Rick.
afternoon, whatever it is.
Whatever it is the time that these listeners are listening.
That's right. So, we've had such a busy few months.
Yeah.
This has been a busy month as well, July.
Surprisingly, this summer's been very busy with
it is
on-location recordings for our
Yeah.
show.
As a matter of fact, we did that show from Hartford, Connecticut.
Yep. A few weeks back.
Yeah, and that was, we had done the show from the Salute restaurant for the Dono project that's going down North Hartford.
Yeah. Right. Try the ragu bolognese. It was fantastic.
It was. The food was
so
excellent.
good.
You know, we need to do more
Restaurants.
location shows through restaurants.
Right.
Yeah, because we get a free meal out of it.
Yep. Shout out to James Cosgrove for putting us up and then
Yes.
feeding us after, which was amazing.
So no one can say if you're in commercial real estate, you can't get a free meal.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to have, we have in the studio with us is Jeannie Beretta. And Jeannie is with the New England Real Estate Academy. Is that correct?
Nice.
That's correct. Good morning.
Good morning. And we also have, in the second half, we have Jim Dumas. He's the COO of Select Solar. And
Nice.
we'll be interviewing him as well. And
Don't forget about September 25th.
I was just going to mention
I
that
knew you were.
September 25th, we are having an enormous event at the Providence Hilton, and where else but Providence, Rhode Island. That's a good place where they put that hotel.
Yeah, right.
With a name like that. But it's Cocktails and Conversation, which is going to be it's
Another great
yeah,
event to meet the local association chapters.
I mean, we've gotten such great response from people that attend our networking events.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we have, 200 people attending
Right.
or better. And all the associations join us.
Mm-hmm.
So they're bringing their members in.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out to be a great networking event.
Yeah.
And I was just telling Jeannie earlier how we don't just bring in brokers to meet brokers or property management companies to meet property management companies. We bring from all aspects of the commercial real estate.
Right.
You know, contractors, developers, brokers, insurance.
Right. I think
everything.
there's two great things about this event when we first started, when we came up with the idea last October, was the idea that you never know in networking who's leading to the next deal. You know, I might know somebody in the residential mortgage who could put me onto a commercial investor or whatever. You never know what leads to what. And the second thing is, it's a 3-hour event of networking, but you also walk away with marketing content. We have a radio show, you have the video interviews, all the photos that go out there. So you're getting all the extra added bonuses of being a sponsor, of getting that written content. And everybody knows that YouTube is huge on social media. So allowing yourself a 3-minute video, which is right in that line of highly watched, I think it's a no-brainer.
We give them a chance to promote themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
They promote themselves at the event, branding, personal branding at the network, and then they have to walk away with their company, something they can put on their website, something they can share through their social media channels.
And it also gives them the opportunity to introduce themselves to a great deal of people.
Right. A wider range than probably their industry specific. If you go to an ABC event, you have the ABC members and the friends of ABC, and then you do the same thing with IREM. But it's usually industry specific. You tend to see the same people year in, year out over the course of the year. When you go to one of our events, you happen to see all of those events basically come together in one event where
Right.
you can meet all of the association presidents and what kind of events they have. You can find out more about the calendar upcoming. Our industry is 99% networking, face to face.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm sold, Eric. I'll be there.
I hope so.
I'll be there.
I hope so.
I'll be there for the cocktails.
Fantastic.
Adam's coming too. Well, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk
Talk.
with Jeannie Beretta.
Nice.
And our show today is brought to you by New England Real Estate Journal, bringing together the commercial real estate industry for over 50 years. Find us at nerej.com. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor for the show, call 800-654-4993 or email us at radio@nerej.com. Again, that's 800-654-4993 or email radio@nerej.com, and we'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
The next level in commercial real estate. This is New England Real Estate Radio on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com. Rick Kaplan on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson, and we have in the studio with us is Jeannie Beretta, and she's with New England Real Estate Academy. It's an awful long name for me to remember. I have to read it every time. Sorry, Jeannie.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. So tell us a little bit about what New England Real Estate Academy is.
Oh, New England Real Estate Academy is a school started 4 years ago. Primarily, it was started to provide online training for continuing ed for brokers in Massachusetts, and now we're in Rhode Island and soon to expand into some other states. But we do live lecture classes as well.
So what is the content of the training? Just on commercial real estate, or is it all aspects of real estate?
It's all aspects of real estate. Every year in Massachusetts, agents need 12 hours of training, and so we have two 12-hour packages. One's for residential agents, the other one's for commercial agents. Yeah.
So how did you start out? What gave you the idea to start up a school like this?
Oh, well, it probably goes back a long time when I started in the business. I started, 30 years ago? More than 30 years ago? I don't remember. I remember the year. Back in the 90s.
Are you asking me? Because I don't remember yesterday.
I started in the real estate business when I lived up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and became a commercial broker. But through the years, I've worked in corporate real estate, and I really loved the training piece. So over the years, I've done a little bit of training, but my primary job was brokerage. But as I developed my business, I started doing more training, and then I got on the faculty with the CCIM Institute. Talk about that if you'd like in a bit. But so I was doing continuing ed training for the industry, and then the state went and said, we're going to allow online training for the real estate brokers.
That doesn't sound like the state would do something like that.
We had to have been the last state in the country to go with online. No kidding.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you're probably, yeah, absolutely.
Well, that sounds
Yeah.
more like the
Yeah,
state. We were behind the eight ball.
A little bit. I shouldn't be saying that out in public, but we were among the
That's all right, I
last.
just
So, so if it's a matter of you've got to stay ahead of the bus, or you get run over. So I said, let's take a look at online, and to do that, I needed to start the school officially. In the past, I did my training just under my own business umbrella, but I started the school so I could provide online training.
So what type of training is the New England Real Estate? You said there's two different 12-hour packages, one for residential and commercial. And what type of training is involved in that?
Well, the state actually creates the curriculum, but they then approved instructors can present it. So commercial real estate basics, investment property advanced, exchanges,
Okay.
leasing. There's a variety. They're all 2-hour package, 2-hour classes is mandated by the state. So we have to fit in that framework. So it's a mix. It's a mix. But we also do live lecture because you can't learn a lot in a 2-hour
Right.
class. So we do live lecture classes as well. Yeah.
Is there a test at the end of those 2-hour lectures that you have to pass?
Nope. You just have to watch the videos, and you get your credit.
Well, what's to say that someone doesn't just put it online and then go into the kitchen and make themselves lunch or whatever, and then come back, the video's over, and just say you've just watched 2
They
hours?
Now you know
probably-
how. Now you know Eric's trick.
Well, I mean, first thing is
That's
like,
how he did his schoolwork.
well, I can see if I can understand if you have a lecture series that's live and you come in, you have to sign your name in, so now they know you've attended. But online, they just have your IP address to say you've attended, which means you could pretty much watch anything on YouTube while that thing's playing in the background.
Now, do you think people think like that, Eric?
Yes, we're human
Of
beings.
course they
Of
do.
course we do.
Of course they do.
Anything that's
Yeah.
that's what they say. Your most difficult task, give it to your laziest person. You know why? Because they'll find the easiest way to get it done.
I like that.
Oh.
I like that.
That's-
Yeah.
Did you come up with that?
I did
good.
not. I believe. I believe I just quoted Richard Branson
Yeah.
of Virgin.
I like him. He's got some great ideas.
He does, but it's very
yeah.
true though.
Yeah.
They people who don't want to work hard, they find the easiest way to get things done. So you give them your harder projects, and they'll make it easier.
Yeah.
So
Well, the state doesn't allow you to just turn on the video and go to the kitchen. So you have to have stops in there so the video is playing and it will stop it,
Right.
intermittently.
So these classes that you're teaching, are these in preparation for them taking the test for the state to get certain levels of their license?
The school, we do provide those, but I don't teach those now. I might fill in every once in a while just because it's fun to do, but I've got 2 instructors that do those classes. And they have to be live. The state hasn't approved pre-licensed training yet for online, so those have to be in a classroom.
No, I've heard that in some states you can take your license, the test for the license online, but Massachusetts you can't. Is that correct?
I don't know about states where you can take it online. You can't do that in any of the New England states, but I know in most states you can take the classes online, except in Massachusetts you can't. The only ones you can take in Massachusetts online are for continuing education. The pre-license has to be done in a classroom here, and then you go to a testing facility to take the exam.
And is there a required number of hours that you have to have in the classroom?
40.
40 hours?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a whole week.
It's a whole week.
That's
more
three.
than I
That's
went.
3 work weeks for me.
That's 3
So, here's a weird question because I'm obviously I'm not a broker and I don't know much about it. But if I take the test in Massachusetts and I do my 40 hours, I go to take the test. Do I have to do the same 40 hours if I want to do it in New Hampshire as well,
No.
or is it like a license that just transfers?
No, it doesn't just transfer, but each state has different requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Massachusetts requirements are probably the least rigid of a lot of other states. When I moved to Texas a few years back, you had to have the equivalent of a bachelor's degree there. So there were hundreds of hours of class that was required. So for example, a state like Texas doesn't have any reciprocity. You want to go to Rhode Island? It's easy. All you have to do is take a lead paint test class, I should say, with an exam after it, and they do acknowledge our license. New Hampshire's a little bit different. You have to take the New Hampshire part of the exam. So each
Okay.
state has their own little requirements.
But as long as you have the basics down, right?
Well, the industry's the same everywhere, and particularly in the commercial arena, we've been calling for a national license
Right.
because we do deals over borders, over
Right.
state borders, and it's really a nuisance to be able to do transactions in other states without having a license in that state.
Right. I would assume with the economy going global and the globalization of where we're at, with all the out of foreign buyers, that they wouldn't have a national license.
Absolutely should
Or at
be.
least a unification test that every single state has to follow by some kind of standard requirement. The New England Real Estate Academy was founded when?
4 years ago.
Oh,
It was
nice.
founded right after the state approved the online training.
Okay.
Well, it took me probably 8 months to get up to speed with this, the business getting it started. So
Right.
the approval came, and I said, this could be interesting. Yeah.
So how many people attend the classes? Do you hold
The live lecture classes or
Yes.
the online?
the live? Well, but actually both.
Well, the online classes, we probably run a couple of hundred students a month through the classes. Yeah.
Nice.
Live lecture for continuing ed's dropped off significantly because people love doing it online. I mean, it's
Yeah.
easy. You watch the videos, you go make your coffee.
Right.
Yeah. Kind of sit back.
Watching
So-
these videos, is there a lecture being taped and then put on to online?
Yes, it's actually the instructors on one side of the screen, and then there are visuals on the other side of the screen. So they can either just watch it or
Right.
read the.
How many takes did it take to get that thing perfect? Is there, is it not? It's not like a one take, but so the teacher probably had to do a bunch of videos.
Well, I'm the teacher.
oh, nice. So
It
how?
took forever.
I can
That's why it
imagine.
took 8 months to get
Yeah,
it going.
right?
It took forever. But it's in a semi-live environment, so there really weren't a lot of takes. There were just a
Okay.
few cuts.
Kind of like our show.
Kind of like, yeah.
Yeah,
It was
nice.
just,
Semi-live.
Yeah,
semi-live.
semi-live.
I had a few students in the classroom, but we didn't want the distraction of a lot of students in the class. So we have a couple, and that seemed to work pretty well.
Nice.
Great. Well, we have to go to a break, Jeannie. But when we come back, we want to talk about the CCIM
Great.
Institute.
the Institute.
Sure.
And we'll be right
Excellent.
back on Money Matters Radio Network.
Rick Kaplan and Eric Wilson, right here on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com. Journal Radio.
And we're back. We're back. And you're back on the New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson, and we're talking with Jeannie Beretta from the New England Real Estate Academy. And Jeannie, you were talking a little bit about the CCIM. I just drew a blank.
Institute again?
Institute. Yes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because you're also involved in that.
I am. Actually, it's a big part of why my business took the route that it did. Because when I came into the business, the question was, well, how do I become a commercial broker? And the CCIM program is an industry certified commercial investment member, and that's where I got my first training. And they have, bar none, best training in the industry, I think, anyway. And that's how I started my business, was with the CCIM. And it took me a few years to do it, but they provide training. Then in 2005, I was accepted to the faculty because I had been doing a lot of training. So they do classes all over the world. My last out-of-country venture was in Poland. That was pretty exciting.
Nice.
Yeah, senior instructor for 2 of their classes. There are 4 classes, basic classes in the series, and I teach 2 of them as a senior
Wow.
instructor. So that's part of the live class I do. I don't do that through my school. That's through the CCIM Institute, which is affiliated with the Realtors. If anybody's thinking about a career in real estate, in the commercial arena, it's one of the ways that they should approach
That
it.
brings up a thought I had in my head.
It's
I
not a
don't have-
Polish
and I
joke, is
have-
it?
Not a
No, and I don't have a lot of thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
But,
One at a time.
a question that people ask all the time, if they're a regular broker, how difficult is it to then become a commercial broker?
To make the transition from being a residential agent
Yes.
to a commercial agent. One of the live lecture classes I teach has to do with that because I get the question all the time. And for the most part, real estate agents who are residentially oriented want to dabble in one and dabble in the other, and you can't. And you can't. And if someone's a very successful residential agent making a good living, it doesn't make sense generally to make the shift. Because they're 2 totally different industries. I mean, they're totally different. Your client base is different, your product type is different, you have different knowledge of marketplace, so it's very difficult. If someone's just coming into the business, that's really the optimal time to do it. But if someone's just starting out and they say, I don't like this house selling business, what they need to do is start with the education.
So would they initially have to become a residential broker or get a residential broker's license?
There's no distinction.
Oh, there
A
isn't?
real estate license is just a real estate license, and you can sell houses or you could sell towers. Yeah, there's no distinction.
Wow.
Oh, so
I didn't
that
know
one
that.
license gives you the opportunity to sell both. The
Correct.
difference, the difference is really the transaction type.
It's the transaction. Yeah, it's the transaction, the company that you're going to go work with,
Mm-hmm.
the training that you're going to get. The market knowledge is totally different.
So it's more or less a education difference.
It's an
More or less.
It's education is critical because there are core
Mm-hmm.
technical pieces, understanding how to do the analysis.
Right.
But then it's market knowledge. Because even within the commercial arena, do you want to be a leasing broker or do you want to be in sales? Do you want to be in property management? But even if you just go to the leasing and sales, it's two totally different client bases. Because if you're a leasing agent, you're dealing with the owners of companies,
Right.
or the owner in the property management,
Mm-hmm.
or the owners of the real estate who are looking for someone to lease space. Totally different activities on a daily basis.
Well, that's interesting because I always thought you had to have a
broker's like
separate,
commercial, yeah.
separate license to sell commercial property.
No, and that's why when they were talking about getting a uniform license for the country, it would have been to separate the commercial brokers
Mm-hmm.
because their expertise, generally, they are covering a larger geographic area. Yeah, no, same
Well,
license.
Now, do you think it would benefit both if they separated it? Would it benefit the residential realtors not to have to worry about anybody playing both lines?
In terms of the,
Well, I mean, so commercial broker,
yeah.
if they're separate, now you have to go to a commercial broker to sell your property. You instead of say my friend's a residential, he
Yeah.
sold my house, I want him to sell my building too.
Yeah.
So he takes away from the commercial side of
Yeah.
it. Do you think it would help the industry if they separated those?
I don't. My first thought is that's not practical
Mm-hmm.
because it would be difficult to say that at what point do you have a commercial property? Because you would need, if you had an investor who bought, say, 6 families and owned 100 of them, that would need the expertise of someone who could do investment analysis.
Right.
And that wouldn't be the residential agent. That would be someone who's more in tune to the commercial arena.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
that would be.
Yeah, well, it sounds pretty interesting that that the two are the same but different.
Right.
Well,
You know,
they're
it's-
selling real estate, but it's two totally different products.
Because
Right.
I was always under the impression that the person that was selling commercial property had to have a lot more of like the construction knowledge and development and all of the things that like a full developer would have to have. That's the way I thought a broker selling commercial
Know the
real
ins
estate
and
would be.
outs.
Where a residential, they just go to your house and they look at it and they put the sign in the front and
Yeah.
wait for the people to come.
No, there's a lot more than that. We've had residential. I mean,
Oh, that's
You know,
true.
they bring in people to set up shop, take all your
staging
staging
and things like that.
Right.
But
Plus, we have to have
overall-
inspectors
yeah,
come through.
But
to make
overall,
sure-
it's much easier transaction
right.
than it is for a commercial, which this is why I always thought you needed to have all these qualifications to be able to sell it.
Well, to be successful and to attract clients, you're going to have the kind of expertise you're talking about. And that's where the designations come in. Because if you get the CCIM designation, you've taken a series of classes that cover in-depth analysis, but you've also done generally $30 million worth of transactions. So you've got a history, a background to show that you've got that kind of expertise. So that's why those designations are so important.
So when someone is looking at property and they trying to choose a broker, do they look at the broker what he has, his transaction history?
I would think someone who's got any
Right.
savvy would want to know, well, what is it that you do? But also, it's all about the networking with people. If you have a 100-unit apartment building or a 10,000 square foot retail center, and you call a residential office, they're not going to have the expertise to be able to market it. And it wouldn't take 5 minutes to know that they didn't have that expertise.
Right.
And I wouldn't have the expertise, per se, if someone said, let's say a client of mine said, I'm selling my house, will you help me?
Right.
How could I do that for them? Because I don't know the market.
You don't
I
know the schools. You
I
don't know
the
the
schools, I
transportation.
don't-
Right.
Well, you also have to get out to that type of investor or to someone that's shopping for that type of property.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't know that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it has to do with who you know, and that's what developing a book of business. That's why the networking's so important, because if you're an expert, your field's retail, you've got to know retail people.
Right.
And you've got to understand how the market works, what the rents are, are they moving up, are they moving down?
Right, and that's probably also another issue with commercial, because there's different aspects of it. There's multifamily, retail, office.
Right.
know,
Industrial.
Yeah.
There's
So someone has to know all of those aspects, unless they're dealing with one specific.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the questions is what type of market are you in? Do you need to specialize in office, or can you be a generalist? If you're in downtown Boston, you're probably a specialist in one, for example, maybe leasing, and maybe it's one building.
right.
But if you're up in a town with 20,000 people up in northern Maine, you're probably a generalist. So
Right.
that's the biggest question to ask and get answered when you're getting started.
Well,
What's your market look like?
we have listeners that are probably going to ask that question. How would they get a hold of you to find out all of these answers?
Okay.
It was plus more about the New England Real Estate Academy.
Sure,
Well, that's
either.
what I mean.
Because I do love to spend time with people who are getting started.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I begin? 508-622-0809.
And is there an email
Or a website?
or a website?
There is a website, and it's newenglandrealestateacademy.com.
All spelt out? One word?
All spelled out.
Nice.
Uh-huh, yeah.
And the name of the company is newenglandrealestate.com.
New England Real
Well,
Estate
New England
Academy.
Real Estate Academy.
Academy,
Yeah.
like New England Real Estate
Yeah,
Journal.
right.
Except you take the academy
There's
instead of the journal.
too many real
Too
estate
many.
names.
Oh, awesome.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much, Jeannie.
Thank you so much. You guys
enlightened
are
us
great.
on the difference between
Yeah.
commercial, residential, and also where to begin if we want to be investors.
That's right.
Excellent.
Education.
And we'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
Rick Kaplan is right here on the Money Matters Radio Network. New England's commercial real estate scene is covered right here on the Money Matters Radio Network with Rick Kaplan.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson. And today, the second half of our show is brought to you by New England Restaurant Brokers, recognized leader in the sale of food and liquor businesses for over 30 years. New England Restaurant Brokers, team of restaurant specialists, have sold hundreds of food and liquor businesses. If you're looking to buy, sell, or develop a food or liquor business, call New England Restaurant Brokers at 617-721-9655 or go to nerestaurantbrokers.com. Again, that's New England Restaurant Brokers at 617-721-9655 or email nerb@comcast.net. That's nerb@comcast.net. And we have in the studio with us Jim Dumas. I said it right.
You got it right. Yeah, good job.
He's the COO of Select Solar, and he's going to tell us a little bit of what's going on in the solar industry.
And a monthly writer at the Journal.
And a monthly writer in the
Yeah,
Journal.
this is true.
See, Eric knows a lot.
I do. I used to read the Green Book all the time. It's one of my favorite things. I love this new clean energy initiative that we're doing. Tell us a little bit about Select Solar to begin, though.
So we're a full-service solar project developer. We're based in Hopkinton, Mass, and we really help our customers, which are businesses and organizations, control and reduce their energy costs, and help out the environment at the same time. So they really like working with us because we're told that we help make the whole process simplified for them, because there can be some complex regulatory pieces that you have to go through, and we really kind of take that off the table for them, make it real easy, and we're pretty practical about it. So we feel we're seasoned business people that put in a project that what we've termed is smart solar. So we're not going to put it in a place that doesn't make sense or try to jam too much into a certain project. And we've gotten that feedback from customers, and we're going on we'll be hitting our 100th project coming up in the fall time. So we feel that we're on the right track there.
Nice. We have something in common. We'll be coming up on our 100th radio show in the same time this fall.
Oh, good.
That's true.
Nice. That's
So,
some great stuff.
I
Lost his train of
I
thought?
lost my train of thought again. You know?
Touche, Eric.
Yeah.
Point one.
No, I was going to ask something about the solar, but I can't think of it. But so on the these solar panels that you're putting out, how long has Select been doing this?
So we're coming up again on our 5th year in the fall. So and it kind of went from the first couple of years we were more evangelizing. It was there was a new program going on in the state of Massachusetts, and you talk about with new companies and a hockey stick. Ours is more like a goalie stick. There was a lot of evangelizing in the first year, and then things took off, and they really haven't stopped since then. And this fall will be our 5th year doing it.
Now you're doing a commercial mainly.
Right, that's our focus. We do we have some municipals, cities and towns, and we also have some nonprofits, but our focus is mainly on commercial rooftops, I'll say.
Okay.
So is there a typical type of job or a project that you look at? Are you looking at anything that has to do,
Yeah.
or do you have a minimum of what you?
It's from an industry perspective, the type of customer, it really doesn't matter. I mean, everybody uses electricity, right? So it's one of the attractions to the industry itself is that we all are consuming electricity. So everyone's a user. So the universe is pretty big there. And then the second part is, well, is there any obstructions, let's say, on my building or my roof? And most of the commercial buildings they're not shaded, whereas residences might be shaded. There's trees around, and shade and solar don't go together, as you might imagine.
Right.
So a lot of that kind of clears itself up with commercial buildings. Size-wise, again, you want to, ideally, it would be a roof that doesn't have a lot of, what are termed rooftop units on it. So a lot of vents coming out and so forth. So a nice, flat roof, I'll say. And let's say the building is even facing due south. So that's the optimal way for it to work. But you can always, place the panels towards the south if you have a flat roof. So if you have a pitched roof, ideally it would be towards the south as well. And a new roof is good, right, obviously, because these last, I'm not sure if your listeners are aware of it, they last a long time. So they last 20, 25 years. So it's a long-term project.
So that brings up a question for me. For 20, 25 years, do you see the solar industry moving like the cell phone industry, where a phone 20 years ago is now outdated? Is the solar panels going to be more efficient, smaller, easy to place, easier to pick up? Will it be on the window frame? As all these new technologies are going to continue to grow. Why does it make sense to do it now and not wait for those better products?
All right, great question. So, and we're constantly asked that by our customers.
I
by the way,
would
right?
assume,
So
yeah.
it's not one that we don't field every day, quite frankly. I'll say it's not going at the pace of the cell phone industry or the computer industry, where Moore's law at half the price and twice the speed in 18 months. It's not going at that pace, but there are advances in the size of the panel, I'll say. But usually it's more real estate, meaning the panel is bigger, so you're able to get more production out of it. It's not that they are putting necessarily a lot more production on the same size.
Okay.
So that hasn't happened yet. And there's some physics involved that's going to limit that, to not be at the same pace of the computer industry. However, panel pricing has come down. So an advancement has been on the pricing side, and it's probably 60% of what it was when we first started in this business, believe it or not.
Wow.
So that's been a huge, advancement. But then it's like, well, why do it now if it's going to last that long, right? So I'll say one of the main reasons to do it now is there's a perfect collision, a perfect storm, if you will, of pricing, technology, and incentives. So the industry is helped by incentives at the state level and the federal government level. And those have a life to them, right? So right now they're very, very strong, and it's very strong to take advantage of all these three areas kind of colliding. The panels are going to last, as I said, 20 years at least. So if a new, panel comes in, 10 years from now, and let me back up a little bit. The project is going to pay for itself. A commercial project is going to pay for itself in probably 4 years or less, believe it or not. And it's going to last close to 20.
Right.
So 10 years from now, if a better panel comes out that's going to double the production, you already have the infrastructure in. You
Right.
can replace those panels. They're already paid for.
Right. It's just
Right.
a matter of taking the old ones off and putting a new one
Right.
on.
Yeah, or you can leave it going, right?
Right,
And not
right.
worry about it. So there's a timing issue with it as well as the technology and financial.
Well, I would think that it's probably more the storage of the
Yeah.
power than the panel itself.
Right. So storage is another. That's one of those I'll say areas of technology that's out there for improvement and use. Because right now, the way that these are done, there is no storage. So if there's extra produced of a system, it's pushed out to the utility. We call it pushed out to the grid. So anytime, like today is a perfect, nice sunny day, you might produce more on your system than you're going to use. Well, what happens to that? It doesn't get stored with a battery. It could technically, but the economics aren't there to make that happen. So what it does is it gets sent out to the grid, one of our utilities, and there's a regulation out there that's called net metering that allows that extra electricity to then come back to you financially.
Okay.
Right. Well, I think there's a minimum you have to sell that you can sell back to the utility.
Yeah, there's I guess I'll flip that a little bit. A maximum amount of the system size that you can put in at a certain level, they won't reimburse you.
Right.
But you can really put at the lower end. You can go as small as you want, and some residences do that, obviously.
Well, we have to go to a break, but I know this is a hot topic. It has to do with solar.
Rick's best joke of the day. Lock it
But
up.
we'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
It's New England Real Estate Journal Radio on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com. Your home for commercial real estate news. It's New England Real Estate Journal Radio on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson. And we're talking with Jim Dumas of Select. Did I say the name right?
Yes, you did.
Yeah,
Select
okay.
Energy
Because I saw you
Development.
smiling. I thought I said it wrong. Of Select. He's the COO of Select Solar. And we were just talking during the break about whether you own your own projects or you just sell the systems to a property owner.
Yeah, it's a good point. We actually feel one of the things that might make us a little different than others is we also own some of our own projects. And what that means is, and therefore we have the customer's viewpoint as well, right? So we'll sell a system to somebody, but we'll also potentially rent somebody's roof, let's say, and we'll put in the system, connect it all up, and then sell them the electricity at a discounted rate. So that process, the term that's used there is called a PPA, a power purchase agreement. And I'll use a nonprofit as an example, a college, let's say, that doesn't pay taxes, federal taxes. They can't take advantage of the tax incentives, which I'll talk about in a second, and therefore it doesn't make sense for them necessarily to invest all that. Well, a third-party investor, someone like ourselves or others in the industry, would come in and say, can I use your land or your roof, and I'll give you a discount off of what you're paying today. So they're able to take advantage of the solar boom just in their way. So their way would be having a reduced electricity bill, whereas others, someone that owns the building, let's say, can put their own on it. They might be able to take 100% of their electric usage and make it go away with the solar system, and they'll have a tax incentive, to take advantage of. So they'll have an investment tax credit of 30% of the cost of the system. If it's a $1 million system, right, we're talking $300,000 in tax credit, not a tax deduction, but a tax credit, dollar for dollar. And they'll have accelerated depreciation. So when we get into these discussions, that's where we typically are talking with or advising them with their accountants are involved. So it's funny, we were talking a break as well around the green aspects of solar. There's absolutely an environmental help here, and it's real and it's impacting. There's also, so that's one green. The other green is there are incentives out there that make this really attractive to everybody. So we joke that it's a financial sell, if you will, but it's a construction job that actually goes in. So the delivery is construction, but the concept is really a financial one.
So as far as solar, a property owner that has a commercial space, like a multifamily, would that make sense for them to put something like that on there?
Yeah, it might. Again, this goes back to when you had asked the question previously, is their building good? So one of the things we do and others in the industry do is talk about feasibility. Does it make sense, right? So we'll do a feasibility study, take a look at their roof. How old is it? How does it look? What's the structure of the building? What does the shading look like there? And then match that up with their usage. If we're talking about multi-tenants, well, who's in there? What's their usage? So what will the system produce? What can they offset relative to the usage? And then look at the economics. So for a property owner, it could be a very good financial investment for them to put that on the building and then offset their common costs that they have, as well as make an agreement with one of their tenants to reduce their electric bill.
Well, could they have it separate metered?
They could do that as well.
So then they could charge so it could almost be another revenue producer for them.
Absolutely. And that's what some of our clients look, that's the way that they look at it.
And that makes it green.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the third green, Rick. Thanks for adding another one.
Very green.
When you guys, whether you rent them or you sell these systems, what's the typical maintenance upkeep after the installation? Because I would assume that that's what most building owners would want to know. Okay, so I've installed this now.
Yeah.
I know it's going to pay itself back in 4 years, but how often are you going to be on top of my roof fixing these panels?
Great question. They and it's you might be surprised. They're pretty self-sufficient. There's not a lot of work that's done after they're put in. So we do a yearly health check. Make sure everything's working. We monitor it 24 hours a day, by the way, to make sure it's up and running. Because as part of these incentives, we track the usage and work with the state to make sure that they're getting the incentives. So the state incentives, which you didn't talk about at all, are post-production, meaning after it's up and running, you basically collect the data and send it to the state, and based upon how much you produce, you receive an opportunity for an incentive. So, and that, by the way, this is a very significant part of the equation on the financial side. So, your listeners, if they're interested in this, that's something that they'll want to get comfortable with and understand, and where we feel we bring that education to the table. But back to the original question on how much maintenance is involved, there really isn't a lot. Once you get to steady state, it's great and it kind of hums on its own. Another question the building owners ask, though, is what is it going to do when they put it in? How long are they going to be there?
Right.
Are they going to poke holes in my roof?
Right.
Is it going to be leaking? And how long we're going to be there? I'll give a general. It's 2 to 3 months, depending on the size of the system on a commercial building. Most of that's for the actual construction part of it. All right. What we try to do as much as we can is not penetrate. So there's a way to weight it down on the system, just like a ballasted roof system, a roof membrane. There's a ballasted system that weights it down on the roof itself versus poking holes into it. And if we do have to, penetrate, then it's obviously done in a professional way. And just like any hole in the roof, if it's done the right way, everything's going to be okay. Right? But we do not minimize that concern from anybody. And we're an owner ourselves of all these too, right? So that's one of the things we kind of like, hey, I know what you're talking about when you're talking about leaks. We don't want to be out fixing them either.
Right.
So what you were just talking about the incentive.
Yes.
Now, is that an ongoing incentive?
Yeah,
so
good.
Year after year?
Yeah, so the investment tax credit is in place at the federal level through the year 2016. And there's talk about what's going to happen then. Will it get extended or will it get reduced? And reducing it, by the way, means it goes to 10%. So it got uplifted to 30% a number of years ago. It got extended once. It might get extended again, but who knows with the Congress and so forth. The state one is one that is year to year. And the way it works is once you are put in and approved, it lasts for 10 years. And it's a significant revenue stream for 10 years. And that's why you want, I think, a solid partner too that knows how this stuff works, because it's not, you're talking real money here, and you want to make sure that it's calculated the right way.
So you bring when you sell this project, you take them along this whole process with
Right,
you,
right.
or with them.
Yeah, we found, early on, the only way to do this effectively was to get folks as comfortable as we had to be when we first did our first project.
Right.
You can't minimize that. And I think when they understand that we know what we're doing, or they get a feeling that we do, then they kind of say, hey, go ahead and do it. And we're with them all the way, by the way, with these incentives. We help them quarter to quarter with these, because we're in the same boat. We own our own, and we're not going away.
Right. I have a question on when we were back to like a few questions ago. You were talking about monitoring these systems 24 hours a day. So do you monitor the usage that's being used from that rooftop system
Yes.
for the entire building?
Yep.
Does this allow them at the end of the year to go back and look at the per month usage in order to reduce their carbon footprint, to work with the tenants? Say they own multi offices. Do these building owners go down and go, hey, this is what we're using right now. We have this system. We're looking to reduce our carbon footprint.
Yeah, so good point. The first thing, right, is conservation. How do you
Right.
reduce before putting in a system like this, let's say? So you can measure, daily, hourly, how much is produced, and go down and kind of map that to their usage. And we're able to, to help them with that on an ongoing basis. It's done via the internet.
Right.
And if it's down, we go out and fix it.
Fantastic. So they do.
Jim, if someone wants to get a hold of someone or yourself
Sure.
at Select, I'm sure you have a sales staff.
Right.
Or do you go out and do all the bidding on these jobs?
No, we have a full staff,
Okay.
so plenty
So
of
if
people.
someone wanted to get some more information about Select Solar, how would they go about that?
So probably the best is I'll point them to our website. There's a lot of information about the projects we've done on there, as well as the topics I just talked about, the regulatory. And that's Select, spelled SOLECT.com, and info@select.com. They could send an email as well if they wanted to.
Fantastic. Thanks for
That's
joining
great.
us, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Great, appreciate it.
And that was Jim Dumas of Select Solar. And we are going to a break, and we'll come back with the close of the show. And today's show was brought to you by New England Restaurant Brokers, recognized leader in the sale of food and liquor businesses for over 30 years. New England Restaurant Brokers' team of restaurant specialists have sold hundreds of food and liquor businesses. If you're looking to buy, sell, or develop a food or liquor business, call New England Restaurant Brokers at 617-721-9655 or go to nerestaurantbrokers.com. Again, that's New England Restaurant Brokers at 617-721-9655 or email nerb@comcast.net. That's nerb@comcast.net, and we'll be right back.
Rick Kaplan on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan, and that's Eric Wilson.
Hey, figured that out today.
Well, I keep trying to forget, but you keep showing up.
I just keep showing up.
I want to thank our guest today,
Yeah.
Jeannie Beretta from New England Real Estate Academy, and also Jim Dumas
Yep.
of Select Solar. And Eric.
Very educational show today, I'm going to say.
Yes, we learned quite a bit.
Well, I didn't say we learned anything, but it was very educational. They both have great teachers to our listeners.
Well, I learned quite a bit.
Well, that's good, Rick.
Yeah.
One thought at a time.
I'm getting well versed in the commercial real estate industry.
You are. You're almost allowed to go out in public. No, but it was really cool. All the solar stuff we just talked about with Jim, and then also the commercial investment side with Jeannie. It's it's great guests when you have very educational.
Yeah, I
pieces.
think that solar is it's definitely going to be a part of commercial real estate. In the next few years, it's growing quite a bit
exponentially.
and but there's a lot of incentives, and it's also a good way for them to create another revenue stream.
Right.
Like I was saying during the
It
interview.
adds construction jobs. I mean, they said it's what's up 20% jobs just in the last since 2011.
Well, I would think when they're considering new construction, that should be one of the
First
points.
thoughts?
Yeah.
There's energy cost. I agree. Energy
I
conservation.
don't understand why they would consider putting up a new building and not putting some kind of either solar or some other type of energy efficiency to the building. Well, I think they're required now.
I think it's bottom line. That's what it always comes down to, is whatever the person feels on their own personal philosophy or own personal opinion on the bottom line. If they were thinking, a lot of people we know personally, they tend to think only a year down the road. Not everyone's thinking 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. And when you're in the commercial industry, you'd think that most of these are investment properties. You're holding on to these for, you're not flipping commercial properties.
Right.
Like you would residential. You're tending to hold on to these as investments. And so I agree with you. I don't know why it's not but we say this every time. Every
Yeah.
time we talk about these new technologies, we go, there's a no-brainer, and why haven't we adapted it? But much like everything in our industry, we tend to take a little bit longer to adapt this new philosophy.
Well, thank you for those wise words, Eric.
That's what I bring to the show. The wise words and the recap. So hopefully
Well,
everybody
I just want to
stays tuned.
remind everyone,
September
September
25th.
25th, Hilton Providence, Cocktails and Conversations.
Join us on the show
And
if you
we'll have
attend.
we'll be doing our show from there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're coming to the end.
It's over.
And you know what? You know what, Eric?
I know what. Show them, Rick.
This deal is done.
That's it. That's a wrap.